Good afternoon, football fans. Big Al here. Low under the weather, but it's all good. It's Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, and welcome to week 11 of the week that was. We'll be taking a look here in part one at Thursday night football and the 8 early games from Sunday. And then in part two, coming up later, we'll look at the 4 p.m. games, Thursday night football, or rather Sunday night football, and Monday night football. So make sure you join for that as well. Okay, let's jump right into week number 11 of the week that was, shall we? And we'll start with Thursday night football, as the Baltimore Ravens defeat the Cincinnati Bengals 34-20. Now, Joe Burrow for the Bengals did get injured in this game, and he's out for the rest of the season, which is bad news if you're a Bengals fan. Bad news. Okay, looking at the individual numbers for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, 16 of 26, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 121.3 passer rating, plus 9 runs for 54 yards, averaging 6 yards per run. Gus Edwards, 12 carries, 62 yards, and 2 scores, average 5.2. Mitchell, 8 for 33, averaging 4.1. Zay Flowers, 1 rush for 7. And Justice Hill, 1 run for 1 yard. Leading receiver for the Ravens was Odell Beckham Jr., 4 catches on 7 targets for 116, averaging 29 yards a catch. Zay Flowers, 3 for 43 yards, 14.3 per catch on 4 targets. Nelson Aguilar had 1 catch for 37 yards, and it went for a touchdown on his one and only target. Mark Andrews also got hurt in this game for Baltimore. He had 2 catches for 23 yards on 2 targets, averaging 11.5 yards per catch. Rashad Bateman, 1 catch, 10 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. And Gus Edwards, 2 catches, 8 yards on 2 targets. Justin Tucker was 2 for 2 on field goals and 4 for 4 on extra points. His longest field goal was 47 yards. Stout would record 4 punts, averaging 45.5 yards per punt. Longest was 56, with 1 touchback and 1 punt inside the 20. All right. Patrick Queen led the Ravens defense with 9 tackles. Williams had 5 tackles and 2 passes defended. Smith, 4 tackles. Urban had 3 tackles. Both Matabuke and Owen had 3 tackles and 1 sack apiece. Robinson, 2 tackles and a sack. And Kyle Van Noy, 2 tackles and 1 sack. Meanwhile, Hamilton had 1 tackle and 2 passes defensed for the Baltimore Ravens. Moving over to the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, before he got hurt, was 11 of 17 for 101 yards and a touchdown and no interceptions. His quarterback rating was 100.4. Burrow added 1 run for 7 yards, and then he would leave, and Browning would come in and finish the game 8 for 14 for 68 yards and a touchdown with no picks and a 93.8 passer rating. Joe Mixon was the leading rusher for Cincinnati, 16 carries, 69 yards, 4.3 yards a pop. Browning, 4 carries, 40 yards, averaged 10 yards per run. Williams also averaging 10 yards per run, 2 rushes for 20 yards. And I mentioned Joe Burrow, 1 for 7. Hudson, leading receiver for the Bengals, 4 catches, 4 targets for 49 yards. He averaged 12.3 yards per catch. Irwin, 3 for 36 on 5 targets, averaged 12 yards per catch. Joe Mixon, 5 catches, 31 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets, 6.2 yards per catch. Tyler Boyd, 3 for 22 yards, on 6 targets, 7.3 yards per catch. Drew Sample, 2 for 19 yards on 2 targets, 9.5 yards per catch. And Chase had 2 grabs for 12 yards on 7 targets and a touchdown, averaging 6 yards per catch. And McPherson, 2 for 3 on field goals. Longest was 50, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Robbins, 5 punts, averaging 43.4 yards per punt. Longest was 53, with 1 touchback. Okay, leading tackler for the Cincinnati Bengals was Battle. He had 10 tackles. Wilson, 6 tackles and a forced fumble. Hill, 6 tackles. Hilton, 4 tackles and a sack. Awuzie, 3 tackles and a pass defended. Pratt, 2 tackles. Sample, 2 tackles. Murphy, 2 tackles. Hendrickson, 2 tackles. Sorry. Hendrickson, 2 tackles, 1 sack for the Bengals. Okay. Total yards, 405 for the Ravens, 272 for the Bengals. Passing yards, 248 to 136, Baltimore. Rushing yards, 157 to 136, Baltimore. The Ravens had 22 first downs versus 20 for the Bengals. Time of possession was 30 minutes, 37 seconds for Baltimore, and 29 minutes, 23 seconds for Cincy. Bengals, 2 of 11 on 4th downs. Bengals, 1 for 1. Ravens had none. Each team had 78 yards on 9 penalties for the Bengals, 110 yards on 9 penalties for the Ravens. Bengals quarterbacks were sacked 5 times for a loss of 33 yards. The Ravens were sacked 3 times for a loss of 16. No fumbles lost by either team. No interceptions thrown by either team. 5 punts for the Bengals and 4 for the Ravens. Okay. Closing line was Baltimore -4, and the over-under was 46. I took the Ravens straight up, but I took the Bengals with the point. I won the straight up pick, lost the ATS pick, and that will be a theme this week because my ATS record really suffered this week. Okay, now let's go to the Arizona Cardinals and the Houston Texans, as Houston wins this one by a final of 21-16. Oh, by the way, the Ravens are now 8-3 on the season, and the Bengals are back to 500 at 5-5. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans are 6-4, and the Arizona Cardinals dropped to 2-9. So let's start off with the Texans. CJ Stroud, 27-37, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Yeah, a quarterback rating of 85. Davis Mills, 1 for 1 for 2 yards and a 79.2 passer rating. Leading rusher is Devin Singletary, 22 carries, 112 yards and a TD, averaging 5.1 yards per run. Stroud had 1 carry for -1 yard. Leading receivers are Tank Dell, 8 catches, 149 and a touchdown on 10 targets, averaging 18.6 yards per catch. Nico Collins, 7 grabs for 65 on 11 targets, 9.3 yards per catch. Robert Woods, 5 for 44 on 8 targets, 8.8 yards per catch. I am so sorry, guys. I am sick as a mug today. So you're going to hear me coughing and sneezing throughout this video. Apologies. Okay, Dalton Schultz, 2 for 32 yards and a touchdown on 3 targets, averaging 16 yards a catch. Sims, 2 for 25, 12.5 yards per catch on 2 targets. And Devin Singletary, 2 grabs for 6 yards on 2 targets, averaging 3 a catch. Amendola, 0 for 1 on field goals. 3 for 3 on extra points. Johnston, 2 punts, averaging 47 yards. Longest was 50, with 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Cashman led the Texans defense. He had 13 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 pass defended. Harris had 5 tackles and 2 passes defended. Petrie, 4 tackles. Stingley, 3 tackles, 2 passes defended, and 1 interception. Houston Carson, 3 tackles and 1 pass defensed. Thomas had 2 tackles. Anderson, 2 tackles and a sack. And Nelson had 1 tackle and 1 pass defense for the Houston Texans. As for the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, 20 of 30 for 214 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 84.6 passer rating, plus 7 rushes for 51 yards and a rushing touchdown. He averaged 7.3 yards per run. James Conner was the leading rusher for Arizona, 14 for 62, 4.4 yards per rush. And Rondale Moore, 2 rushes for 6 yards. Averaged 3 a run. Dortch was the leading receiver for the Cardinals, 6 for 76 yards, 12.7 per catch on 8 targets. Rondale Moore, 1 catch, 48 yards, 1 target, and a touchdown. Trey McBride, 5 catches, 43 yards on 7 targets, averaging 8.6 yards per catch. Marquise Hollywood Brown, 2 catches on 5 targets for 18 yards. That's 9 yards per grab. Swaim, 2 catches, 15 yards on 2 targets, 7.5 yards per grab. James Conner with 2 catches for 1 yard. Matt Prater, 1 for 1 on field goals, hitting from 57, and 1 for 1 on extra points. Gillikin, 2 punts, averaging 53.5 yards per punt. Longest was 59, with no touchbacks, punts inside the 20 or blocks. Leading tackler for the Arizona Cardinals was Thompson, with 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 pass defense, and 1 interception. So he was a busy guy. Woods had 6 tackles. Hamilton had 4 tackles, 1 pass defended, and an interception. Fotu, 4 tackles and a sack. And Stills had 2 tackles and a sack. Buda Baker had 3 tackles. And Wilson also had 3 tackles for the Cardinals. Garnett had 4 tackles. Okay. Total yards, 419 for the Texans, 319 for the Cardinals. Passing yards for 308 to 196 for Houston. Rushing yards, 123 to 111 for Arizona. The Texans had 22 first downs, while the Cardinals had 20. All right, third downs, 3 of 10 for Arizona, 9 for 13 for Houston. Fourth downs, 1 for 4 for the Cardinals, 0 for 1 for the Texans. 5 penalties, 50 yards for the Cardinals, and 3 penalties, 19 yards for the Texans. Arizona lost the fumble. They threw an interception, and they had 2 punts. And the Texans had 3 interceptions thrown and 2 punts. The Cardinals were sacked 3 times, losing 18 yards. The Texans were sacked 4 times, losing 30. Closing line, Houston minus 5.5, over unders 48. I picked the Texans both straight up and against the spread. I won one and lost the other. Okay, now we're moving on to the Bears and Lions. Detroit was down 12 points in the fourth quarter, but they rallied back and edged out the Chicago Bears by a final of 31-26. Oh, by the way, the Texans are 6-4 and the Cardinals are 3-9. The Bears, meanwhile, will drop to 3-8, and the Lions are 7-2. or rather 8-2. Best 10-game start for the Lions since 1962. Been a while. Okay, let's look at individual numbers for the Detroit Lions first. Jared Goff, 23 of 35, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 68.3 passer rating, plus 2 rushes for 3 yards. So not exactly his best game for Jared Goff. David Montgomery, 12 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown, 6.3 yards per run. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 rushes, 36 yards, 4.5 yards per run, and a TD. And Goff, 2 carries, 3 yards, 1.5 yards per run. Leading receiver for the Lions is Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets, averaging 9.6 yards. Averaging 9.6 yards per catch. Gibbs had 6 catches for 59 on 6 targets, averaging 9.8. Jameson Williams, 2 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets, 22 yards per catch. Montgomery, 2 for 22 on 2 targets, averaged 11 yards a catch. Laporta, 3 catches, 18 yards on 5 targets, averaged 6 yards a catch. Reynolds, 1 catch, 11 yards. Raymond, 1 catch for 5 yards, and both were targeted twice. Okay, Riley Patterson, no field goals attempted, 3 for 3 on extra points. Fox had 2 punts, averaging 48.5 yards per punt. His longest was 60. Both of his punts landed inside the 20-yard line. Anzalone paced the Lions defense with 11 tackles. Barnes had 6 tackles. Campbell, 5 tackles. Branch, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Sutton, 4 tackles and a forced fumble. Aiden Hutchinson, 2 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And McNeil, 2 tackles and a sack for the Lions. For the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields, 16 of 23, 169, a touchdown and no interceptions, 105.2 quarterback rating. And he was also the Bears' leading rusher, 18 for 104, averaging 5.8 yards per run. Herbert, 16 for 35, averaging 2.2. Johnson, 6 for 30, averaging 5 yards. Donta Foreman, 6 for 14 and a touchdown, averaging 2.3 yards per run. DJ Moore was the leading receiver for the Bears, 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets, averaging 13.7 yards per catch. Darnell Mooney, 1 catch for 24 on his 1 target. Cole Kmet, 3 catches, 20 yards on 4 targets, averaged 8.7 yards per grab. St. Brown, 2 for 19 yards on 2 targets, 9.5 yards per catch. Khalil Herbert, 2 for 6 yards on 3 targets, 3 yards per catch. And Scott, 1 for 4 yards on 2 targets. Santos, 4 for 4 on field goals. Longest was 53. And 2 for 2 on extra points. Gill, 2 punts, averaging 45.5 yards per punt. Longest was 47. 1 touchback. Okay, Edwards had 5 tackles, 1 pass defended, and 1 interception for the Chicago defense. Gordon and Brisker each have 5 tackles. Tremaine Edmonds, 4 tackles, a pass defended, and an interception. Jackson, 4 tackles. Jones, 3 tackles. Stevenson, 3 tackles, a forced fumble, 1 pass defended, and an interception. Sanborn, 2 tackles and 1 sack rather. And Montez Sweat with 1 tackle and 1 sack for the Bears. Okay, total yards. 338 yards of offense for the Lions, 334 for the Bears. Passing yards, 223 to 151 for Detroit. and rushing yards were 183 to 115 for Chicago. The Bears had 25 first downs, while the Lions had 23. Time of possession, 40 minutes, 24 seconds for the Bears. Only 19 minutes and 36 seconds for the Lions. Okay, third downs, 5 of 13 for the Bears, 8 for 11 for the Lions. 2 for 2 on fourth downs for the Bears. No fourth downs for the Lions. Chicago had 6 penalties for 69 yards. They were sacked twice, losing 18 yards with 1 fumble loss, no interceptions, and 2 punts. The Lions had 5 penalties for 25 yards. They were sacked twice, losing 13 yards with 1 fumble loss, 3 interceptions, and 2 punts. This was a rough week. Okay. All right. Closing line was Detroit -8. Over under is 47.5. I picked the Lions both straight up and against the spread. Since Chicago only lost by 5 points, they covered the point spread. Okay, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, 33-10 over the Carolina Panthers. We'll start off with the individual numbers for the boys first. Dak Prescott, 25 of 38, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 95.2 passer rating, and 2 rushes for 6 yards, averaging 3 yards per run. Cooper Rush, 2 for 3 for 15 yards, 78.5 passer rating. 3 rush attempts for -3 yards. Tony Pollard, 12 for 61 and a touchdown, 5.1 yards per tote. Dwaddle, 8 carries, 23 yards, 2.9 yards per touch. Turpin, 1 for 13. Lamb, 1 for 7. Okay, leading receiver was Brandon Cooks. 3 catches, 42 yards on 4 targets, averaging 14 yards a catch. CeeDee Lamb, 6 catches, 38 yards and a TD on 9 targets, 6.3 yards per catch. Jay Ferguson, 3 catches, 32 yards on 5 targets, 10.7 yards per catch. Michael Gallup, 3 for 31 on 5 targets, 10.3 yards a catch. Schoonmaker, 2 catches, 23 yards and a touchdown on 2 targets, 11.5 yards per catch. Pollard, 4 for 19 on 5 targets, 4.8 yards per reception. Tolbert, 2 for 12 on 5 targets, 6 yards per. Turpin, 2 for 10 yards, 5 yards a catch on 3 targets. And Dwaddle, 2 catches, -3 yards on 2 targets. Okay, Aubrey, 2 for 2 on extra points, longest was, or 2 for 2 rather, on field goals, longest was 30. And 3 for 4 on extra points. Anger with 3 punts, averaging 58.7 yards a punt. Longest was 63. Sorry again. With 1 touchback and 1 punt inside the 20. Woo! Jesus. Okay. Bell led the defense with 6 tackles. Lewis, 4 tackles and a forced fumble. Hooker, 3 tackles. Curse, 2 tackles and half a sack. Micah Parsons, 2 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Clark, 2 tackles and a pass defended. Deron Bland, 2 tackles, 1 pass defended, 1 interception, and another touchdown. That is his 4th pick 6 this season for Deron Bland. And then Lawrence at 1 tackle and 1 sack for the Cowboys. For the Panthers, Bryce Young, 16 of 29, 123, a touchdown and an interception, 62.9 passer rating. 2 rushes for 3 yards, 1.5 yards per run. Hubbard, 10 rushes, 57 yards, 5.7 a run. Miles Sanders, 11 carries, 50 yards, 4.5 yards per run. Adam Thielen, Carolina's leading receiver, 8 for 64 on 11 targets, 9.3 yards a catch. Sullivan, 1 catch, 20 yards, 1 target. Chenault, 2 for 9 yards on 2 targets, 4.5 yards per catch. Hubbard, 2 for 8 on 2 targets, 4 yards per catch. Mingo, 1 catch, 6 yards, 6 targets. Trumbull, 1 catch, 4 yards for a touchdown on 3 targets, 4. Well, you get the idea there. And then Miles Sanders, 1 catch for 2 yards on 1 target. Pinheiro, 1 for 1 on field goals, hitting from 42, 1 for 1 on extra points. And Hecker, 5 punts, 48.4 yards per punt, 61 is his long, 1 touchback, and 1 punt inside the 20. Louvu is the leading tackler. In fact, Louvu and Bell are the leading tacklers for the Panthers, each with 6. Louvu also had a couple passes defended in this game. Brown, 4 tackles. Jackson, 4 tackles. Booty, 4 tackles. Hill, 3 tackles and 3 passes defense. Gruger, Hill, 2 tackles and 1 pass defense. Burns with 2 tackles. Johnson, 2 tackles and a pass defense for the Carolina Panthers. Total yards, 311 for the Cowboys, 187 for the Panthers. Passing yards, 204 to 77 Dallas. Rushing yards, 110 to 107 Carolina. Time of possession, Cowboys 31 minutes, 21 seconds. Panthers 28 minutes, 39 seconds. First downs, 23 for Dallas and 13 for Carolina. Third downs, 7 of 16 for the boys, 5 of 15 for the Panthers. Carolina also 3 for 3 on 4th down. As for penalties, 5 for 45 yards for Dallas, 8 for 90 yards for Carolina. The Panthers were sacked 7 times, losing 46 yards with 1 fumble loss and 1 interception. Dallas had 3 punts while the Panthers had 5. Okay. Closing in this game was, if it'll move down, there it is. Dallas minus 11. And the over-under was 43.5. So they nearly got there with 43 points. I picked Dallas both straight up and against the spread. Okay, off we go to the Raiders and the Dolphins. Miami's offense struggled, but they ended up with the win, 20-13. Oh my God. All right, we'll start with individual numbers for the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, 28-39, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and a quarterback rating of 103, plus 2 rushes for 6 yards, 3 yards per run. Raheem Mostert led Dolphins rushers, 22 for 86, 3.9 yards per run. Ahmed, 3 rushes, 6 yards, 2 yards per carry. And Devin A-Chain, who came back and got injured again, 1 rush for 1 yard. All right. Leading receiver was Tyreek Hill, 10 for 146 and a touchdown on 11 targets, averaging 14.6 yards per catch. Jalen Waddle, 4 for 55 on 8 targets, 13.8 yards a catch. Chosen, 2 for 39 on 2 targets, 19.5 yards per catch. Ahmed, 3 catches, 25 yards and a touchdown on 3 targets, 8.3 yards a catch. Cedric Wilson, 3 catches, 23 yards on 4 targets, 7.7 yards per catch. And that's pretty much it. Sanders, 2. Crap. Sanders, 2 for 3 on field goals. Longest is 51. 2 for 2 on extra points. Bailey with 3 or 3 punts, averaging 47.7 yards per. Longest was 66, 2 punts inside the 20-yard line. Okay. Baker had 5 tackles. Howard and Phillips had 5 tackles apiece. Howard added a pass defended. Phillips also added a pass defended, an interception, and 2 sacks. Holland 4 tackles. Chubb 3 tackles. Van Ginkel 3 tackles and 2 passes defended. Kohu 3 tackles and a pass defended. And Seiler 1 tackle and 1 pass defended for the Dolphins. For the Las Vegas Raiders, Aiden O'Connell, 24 of 41, 271, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions, quarterback rating of 56, 1 rush for 3 yards. Josh Jacobs held in check again, 14 for 39, just 2.8 yards per run. Devontae Adams is the leading receiver for Vegas, 7 for 82 and a touchdown on 13 targets, 11.7 yards per catch. Jacoby Myers 4 for 49 on 5 targets, 12.3 yards per catch. Mayer 4 catches, 46 yards, 5 targets, 11.5 yards per catch. Then you've got Hunter Renfrow, 5 catches, 42 yards on 5 targets, 8.4 yards per grab. Tucker, 2 grabs, 36 yards, 7 targets, 18 yards a catch. Josh Jacobs, 1 catch, 12 yards on 1 target. And Amir Abdullah, 1 catch for 4 yards on 1 target. Carlson, 2 for 2 on field goals. Longest is 47, 1 for 1 on extra points. Cole with 6 punts, averaging 52.5 yards. Longest was 61, and 2 punts inside the 20. Morig led the Raiders defense with 7 tackles. Spillane, 6 tackles and a pass defended. Hobbs, 6 tackles, 1 forced fumble and a pass defended. Polamau, 4 tackles, 1 pass defense and an interception. Peters, 4 tackles. Diablo, 3 tackles. Crosby, 3 tackles, a sack and a pass defended. Masterton, 3 tackles and a forced fumble. And Jenkins with 2 tackles for the Raiders. All right. They do this. Okay, total yards 422 for the Dolphins, 296 for the Raiders. Passing yards 323 to 260 Miami. Rushing yards are 99 to 36 Miami. Time of possession 32 minutes 15 seconds for the Dolphins and 27 minutes 45 seconds for the Raiders. First downs 21 for Miami, 12 for Vegas. Third downs 4 of 14 for the Raiders, 3 of 11 for the Dolphins. Fourth downs, Vegas 0 for 2, Miami 0 for 1. All right, 5 penalties for the Raiders for 41, 5 penalties for the Dolphins for 44. Vegas was sacked twice, losing 11 yards. Miami was sacked once, losing 2 yards. The Dolphins lost 2 fumbles, threw an interception, and had 3 punts, while the Raiders threw 3 interceptions and punted the ball 6 times. Closing line was Miami minus 14, and the over-under was 44. I took the Dolphins straight up and against the spread, but since Vegas lost by only 7, they covered. I'll be right back. Okay, so that closes the book on the Raiders and the Dolphins. Now we're going to move on to the Chargers losing to the Green Bay Packers 23-20. Okay, so we're going to start individual team numbers for the Packers. Jordan Love, 27 of 40, 322. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 108.5 passer rating. And he did. Oh, yeah, he did one. 3 rushes for no gain. Reed was 3 rushes for 46 and a touchdown, 15.3 yards per run. Dillon, 14 for 29, 2.1 yards per run. And Jones, 4 for 14, 3.5 yards per run. Okay, Wicks, 3 catches, 91 yards on 5 targets, 30.3 yards per catch. Romeo Dobbs, 5 catches, 53 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets, 10.6 yards per grab. Reed, 4 catches, 46 yards on 6 targets, 11.5 per catch. Kraft, 2 for 32 on 2 targets, 16 yards per catch. A.J. Dillon, 4 for 32 yards on 4 targets, 8 yards per catch. Musgrave, 4 for 28 yards on 6 targets, 7 yards per catch. Christian Watson, 2 for 21 and a touchdown on 4 targets, 10.5 yards per catch. Okay. Carlson, 1 for 2 on field goals hit from 28, 2 for 3 on extra points. Whelan, 4 tackles, or not 4 tackles, so he's a kicker. 4 punts, averaging 48.3 yards a punt. 61 was his longest, with 1 touchback and 2 inside the 20. Okay. Nixon and Campbell each had 6 tackles to pace Green Bay. Owens, 4 tackles. Ballentine, 4 tackles and a pass defended. Johnson, 3 tackles. Valentine, 3 tackles, 3 passes defended. Walker, 2 tackles. Van Ness, 2 tackles. Heath, 2 tackles. Gary, 1 tackle and a sack for this Packer defense. Switching over to the Chargers, Justin Herbert, 21 of 36 for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 99.3 quarterback rating, 8 rushes for 73 yards, 9.1 yards per run, made him LA's leading rusher. Austin Eckler, 10 for 64, 6.4 yards per grab, or rather 6.4 yards per run, and Kelly, 6 for 13, 2.2 yards per run. Keenan Allen, 10 catches, 116 and a touchdown on 16 targets, 11.6 yards per catch. Parham, 4 catches, 57 yards on 6 targets, 14.3 yards per catch. Smart, 1 grab, 51 yards and a touchdown on 3 targets. Johnston, 2 catches, 21 yards on 6 targets, 10.5 yards per catch. And Eckler, 2 catches, 6 yards on 3 targets. That's 3 yards per grab. Dicker the kicker, 2 for 2 field goals, long 26, 2 for 2 extra points. Scott, 3 punts, averaging 47.7 yards. Longest was 57, 1 punt inside the 20. Leading tackler was Khalil Mack with 8 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass defended. Murray, 6 tackles. Gilman, 6 tackles. Kendrick, 6 tackles. James and Marlowe each with 5 tackles. Leonard, 3 tackles. Taylor and Topolo, 2. 3 tackles and 1 pass defended each. And Davis, 2 tackles and a pass defended for the Chargers. Okay, total yards, 397 for the Packers, 394 for the Chargers. Total or passing yards is 295 for Green Bay, 244 for the Chargers. Rushing yards is 150 LA and 102 Green Bay. Time of possession, 31 minutes, 58 seconds for the host Packers and 28 minutes, 2 seconds for the Chargers. First downs, 23-17 for Green Bay. Both teams 7 of 14 on third down. Chargers 0 for 2 on fourth down, while the Packers 0 for 1. As for penalties, 4 for LA for 54 yards, 7 for Green Bay for 46. The Chargers were sacked twice, losing 16 yards. Packers were sacked 3 times, losing 27. The Chargers lost the fumble, and they had 3 punts, while the Packers had 4. Closing line was LA -3. Over under was 44. And the Packers won straight up, and they pushed the 3-point total as a result. Okay, now we're going to the New York Giants taking down the Washington Commanders 31-19, and New York sweeps Washington in the season series. Individual numbers first for the Giants. Tommy DeVito, 18 of 26, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 137.7 passer rating. Easily his best game as a pro. 1 rush, 7 yards for DeVito. Saquon Barkley, 14 for 83, 5.9 yards per run. And Wan'Dale Robinson, 1 for 2 yards. Darius Slayton led the Giants with 4 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets, 20.5 yards per catch. Barkley, 4 catches, 57 yards, 2 receiving scores on 5 targets, 14.3 yards per catch. Bellinger, 3 for 38 on 3 targets, 12.7 yards per catch. Wan'Dale Robinson, 3 catches, 35 yards on 4 targets, 11.7 yards per catch. And Hyatt, 1 catch for 7 yards on 2 targets. Okay, Bullock, 1 for 1 on field goals made from 36, 4 for 4 on extra points. Gillen, 7 punts, averaging 45.4 yards. Longest was 56, with 1 touchback and 2 inside the 20. Okay, McKinney led the Giants defense with 8 tackles. Okereke had 6 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. McFadden, 5 tackles, pass defended. Hawkins, 4 tackles. Lawrence, 4 tackles, a sack, and 2 passes defended. Simmons, 4 tackles, 1 pass defended, interception, and a touchdown. Holmes, 4 tackles, pass defended, and an interception. Thibodeau, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 pass defended. McLeod, 3 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defended, and 1 interception for the New York Football Giants. There we go. As for the Washington Commanders, Sam Howell, 31 of 45, 255, 1 touchdown, 3 INTs, 62.7 passer rating. 3 rushes, 35 yards, and a rushing touchdown on 11.7 a pop. Robinson, 17 for 73, 4.3 yards a run. Rodriguez, 6 for 43, 7.2 yards a run. And Gore, 2 carries, 23 yards, 11.5 yards per run. The receivers are Logan Thomas, 5 for 58 yards, 11.6 yards a catch on 8 targets. Robinson, 7 for 58, 8.3 yards a catch on 9 targets. Scary Terry McLaurin, 5 catches, 43 yards, 8.6 yards per catch on 7 targets. Dotson, 3 for 23 and a touchdown on 4 targets, 7.7 a catch. Brian Pringle, 3 for 22, 7.3 yards per catch on 3 targets. Bates, 2 for 15, 7.5 yards per catch on 2 targets. Crowder, 2 for 12 yards, 6 yards a catch on 2 targets, and that's pretty much it for the Washington receivers. Joey Sly, 2 for 2 on field goals, longest was 42, 1 for 2 on extra points. Tress Way, 2 punts, 45 yards per punt, 50 was his longest. Okay. Butler had 5 tackles. Davis, 5 tackles and a sack. Mayo, 5 tackles and 2 sacks. Cameron Curl, 4 tackles. Emmanuel Forbes, 4 tackles, 2 passes defended. Allen, 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Henry, 2 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 2 passes defended. Payne, 1 tackle, 1 sack. St. Juice, same numbers, 1 tackle, 1 sack. How many sacks did they have? That's 3, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7, that's 8, 9. Wow. The Washington Commanders had 9 sacks against the Giants. That's crazy. Okay. Total yards. 403 for the Commanders, 292 for the Giants. Passing and rushing yards both favor Washington. Passing was 229 to 201. Rushing is 174 to 91. And more than a 2-1 edge on the first downs for the Commanders, 28 to 13. Time of possession, 34 minutes and 51 seconds, nearly putting Washington in ball hawk territory. And 25 minutes, 9 seconds for the Giants. Okay. Third down, 5 of 14 for the Giants, 5 of 13 for the Commanders. Fourth down, New York 0 for 1, Washington 1 for 1. Penalties, 5 for 33 yards for the Giants. They were sacked 9 times, losing 45 yards. No fumbles or interceptions in 7 months. And the Commanders just 1 penalty for 5 yards, sacked 4 times for 26 loss, 3 fumbles lost, 3 interceptions, and 2 punts. Closing line was Washington minus 7.5. Over under was 39. But the Giants would win both straight up and ATS. Okay. Next, you've got the Cleveland Browns beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-10. Start with individual numbers for the Browns. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the rookie, 24, 43, 165. No touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 54-point rating. 3 rushes for 20 yards, 6.7 yards per run. Kareem Hunt was the leading rusher, held to 36 yards on 12 rushes, 3 a tote. Ford, 12 for 31 and a touchdown, 2.6 a tote. Okay, leading receiver was Moore, 6 for 60 yards, 10 yards per catch on 7 targets. Njoku, 7 for 56, 8 yards per catch on 15 targets. Amari Cooper, 4 for 34, 8.5 yards per catch on 8 targets. Ford, 2 for 8, 4 yards per catch on 5 targets. Okay. Hopkins, 2 for 2 on field goals, long was 34, 1 for 1 on extra points. Bojorquez, 8 punts, 47.5 yards per. His longest was 65 with 1 touchback and 3 inside the 20. Owasu Kamara and Delpit led the Browns defense with 6 tackles each. Okoronkwo, 4 tackles and a sack. Taki, 3 tackles and a pass defended. Hickman, 3 tackles. Ward, 3 tackles and a pass defended. Newsome, 2 tackles, as is Smith. Garrett, 2 tackles and 2 sacks. Switching over to the Steelers. Kenny Pickett, 15-28, 106 yards, no touchdowns or interceptions, 62.5 passer rating. 4 rushes for 9 yards, 2.3 yards per run. Warren, 9 for 129 and a touchdown, 14.3 yards per run. Najee Harris, 12 for 35, 2.9 yards per run. Lead receiver is George Pickens, 4 for 38, 9.5 yards per catch on 6 targets. Robinson, 3 for 20 yards, 6.7 yards per catch on 4 targets. Deontay Johnson, 2 catches, 16 yards, 8 per grab on 8 targets. And Warren, 3 for 16, 5.3 yards per grab on 3 targets. Okay. Boswell, 1 for 1 on field goals, converting from 28, and 1 for 1 on extra points. How about Harvin with 9 punts, 39.4 yards per punt, longest was 48, and 4 punts inside the 20. Pittsburgh's leading tackler was Roberts with 11. Thompson, 5 tackles, 2 passes defended. Porter, 5 tackles, 1 pass defended. Hayward, 5 tackles. TJ Watt, 4 tackles and a sack. Kazee, 3 tackles. Patrick Peterson, 3 tackles and a pass defended. Highsmith, 2 tackles. Benton, 2 tackles. Killebrew, 2 tackles. And Sullivan, 1 tackle, 2 passes defended, 1 interception for the Steelers. Okay. All right. Total yards, 259 for the Browns, 249 for the Steelers. Passing yards were 163 to 77 Cleveland. Rushing yards, 172 to 96 Pittsburgh. Time of possession, Browns 31 minutes, 27 seconds. Steelers 28 minutes, 33 seconds. First downs, 20 to 12 for the Cleveland Browns. Third downs, 3 of 14 for Pittsburgh, 4 of 17 for Cleveland. So neither team did that well on fourth or third down, but both were 1 for 1 on fourth down. Steelers, 6 penalties, 46 yards. They were sacked 3 times, losing 29 yards with 9 punts. And the Browns had 1 penalty the entire day for 10 yards, sacked once for a 2-yard loss, and 1 interception and 8 punts. Closing line was Cleveland minus 2.5. Over under was 34.5. Took the Steelers both straight up and with the point in the loss. And then the final game we'll look at here in part 1 is the Tennessee Titans losing big to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Final from Duval County is 34-14. Start with individual numbers for the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, 24, 32, 262. Couple touchdowns, no interceptions, 119.5 passer rating. 5 rushes for 17 yards, 3.4 yards per run. Travis Etienne, 14 carries, 52 yards, 3.7 yards per run. Bigsby, 9 for 21 yards, 2.3 yards per run. Johnson, 7 for 20. And 2.9 yards a run. Calvin Ridley was the leading receiver for Jacksonville. 7 for 103 and 2 touchdowns on 9 targets. 14.7 yards per catch. Christian Kirk, 3 for 48, 16 yards a catch on 6 targets. Duke Johnson, 1 for 34 yards on 1 target. Evan Ingram, 4 for 29, 7.3 yards a catch on 6 targets. Farrell, 2 for 21, 10.5 yards per catch on 2 targets. Zay Jones, 4 for 20, averaging 5 a catch on 4 targets. And Etienne, 3 for 7 on 3 targets, 2.3 per catch. McManus, 2 for 2 on field goals, longest was 30, 4 for 4 on extra points. Cook 2 punts, 51.5 average, long was 54, 1 punt is at the 20-yard line. Okay, Lloyd had 5 tackles. Brown had 4 tackles and a pass defended. Oluokun, 2 tackles and half a sack. Wingard, 2 tackles. Herndon, 2 tackles. Cisco, 1 tackle, half a sack. Walker, 1 tackle, half a sack, pass defended. And Williams, 1 tackle and 1 pass defended. For Tennessee, Will Levis, 13-17, 158, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 143.8 passer rating, 4 rushes, 2 yards, half a yard per run. Moore, 1 rush, 38 yards. Derrick Henry, 10 for 38 yards, 3.8 per run. Spears, 4 for 14, 3.5 per run. Okay, DeAndre Hopkins led the receivers, 4 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets, 14.8 yards per catch. Moore, 1 catch for 49 on 1 target. Spears, 2 for 12 on 2 targets, 6 yards a catch. Phillips, 1 for 10 yards on 1 target. Nick Folk, no field goals attempted, 2 for 2 on field goal or extra points. And Ryan Stonehouse, 4 punts, 53.5 average. Longest was 73. 1 touchback, 2 inside the 20. Okay. Wallace had 6 tackles. Rice and Fulton each had 5 tackles. Landry, 4 tackles. Edmonds, 4 tackles and a sack. Al Shahir, 3 tackles. Molden, 3 tackles. Hooker, 3 tackles. McCreary, 3 tackles. Total yards, 389 for Jacksonville, 235 for Tennessee. Passing yards, 261 for the Jags, 143 for the Titans. Rushing yards also favored the Jaguars, 128-92. Time of possession, 36 minutes, 26 seconds for the Jaguars, 23 minutes, 34 seconds for the Titans. First downs, 24 for Jacksonville and 12 for Tennessee. Third down, Tennessee 207, Jacksonville for 12. Fourth downs, 1 for 1 for the Titans, 3 for 4 for the Jags. Penalties, 7 for 66 for the Titans. They were sacked twice, losing 15 yards with 2 fumbles lost and 4 punts. And the Jaguars had 4 penalties for 29 yards, 1 sack, losing a single yard, and 2 punts. All right, closing line, Jacksonville line at 6.5. Over under is 40.5. I got Jacksonville to win, but I took Tennessee to cover. That's pretty much tells me how my ATS record went this year or this week. Okay, that is it for now. I'll be back with part 2 a little bit later. We'll look at the 4 p.m. games from Sunday, plus Sunday Night Football and the big Super Bowl rematch on Monday Night Football with the Eagles and Chiefs, plus my Week 12 power rankings and a look at the updated playoff races in the NFL entering Week 12. So join me later for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the pigskin. Peace out.